Stop following traditional financial advice blindly. Much of what you hear about building wealth isn't some malicious plot, but it is heavily driven by media incentives, standard behavioral models, and the need to appeal to the broadest audience possible. Let's be brutally honest for a second. There are essentially two different rule books operating in the financial world. The first is the public rule book. This is exactly what they teach you in school, what your parents told you, and what traditional media constantly preaches. Work hard, save 10% of your paycheck, put it in a basic savings account, and eventually buy a house. It sounds responsible and extremely safe, right? But here is the harsh reality. For many people, these rules lead to a strictly average outcome. They provide a baseline of security, but while you are playing it entirely safe, everyday inflation and missed compounding opportunities often eat away at your long-term purchasing power. Then, there is the second set of rules. This is about principles and behavior, not secret elites. We call this the uncommon approach. These are the quiet, disciplined principles used by highly successful investors who understand market probabilities. You rarely hear these rules shouted on morning financial shows. Why? Because they require immense patience, they break traditional norms, and frankly, they are completely counterintuitive to the average mind. You see, the wealthy mindset is fundamentally different. While the majority are desperately trying to be smart, chasing the hottest tech stocks, or jumping into the latest market hype out of pure FOMO, fear of missing out, top investors are focused on something else entirely. They are focused on simply not being stupid. Instead of frantically chasing every new trend, they protect their capital by mastering the art of saying no. Today, I am pulling back that curtain. Here's the framework. To actually survive in this arena, we must start by rethinking the very first question you ask yourself about money. Rule number 1 of the uncommon approach is what we call inversion. If you ask an average person about their financial goals, they will almost always ask a forward-looking question. How can I get rich fast? Or, how do I find the next giant tech stock before everyone else? It sounds logical, but focusing constantly on trying to be a financial genius is exhausting and often prone to significant errors. Top investors flip this equation entirely upside down. We practice inversion. Instead of obsessing over how to become massively wealthy, we ask a much more practical question. How do I ensure that I do not die poor? What are the specific traps that tend to derail wealth? And then we simply spend our lives actively avoiding those exact things. A principle many value investors live by, popularly attributed to Charlie Munger, is, all I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I will never go there. Many think this is just a funny joke, but it is actually a core cornerstone of preserving your capital. For most people, survival is the fundamental prerequisite to long-term wealth. In the financial markets, the math of losing is incredibly cruel. If you invest $10,000 and lose 50% on a bad tip, you now have $5,000. To get back to where you started, you do not need a 50% gain, you need a 100% gain. You have to work twice as hard just to recover from a single foolish mistake. So, how do you actively practice inversion today? By avoiding the 3 common killers of wealth. 1. Leverage. This is just a fancy financial word for borrowing money to invest. The public rules might tempt you to use debt to multiply your gains, but excessive leverage is a fast track to deep losses. It is like driving a supercar at 200 miles per hour with no brakes. For most people, any tiny bump in the road can lead to a massive crash. 2. Emotional investing. When the market is booming and your neighbor is bragging about overnight gains, the urge to jump in is overwhelming. But buying assets out of pure jealousy, or FOMO, has a high probability of leading to poor returns. 3. Ignorance. If you cannot explain exactly how a company makes its money to a 10-year-old child, think twice before investing in it. Stop trying to be the smartest person in the room. Focus entirely on avoiding major mistakes, and time will often do the rest. If avoiding mistakes keeps you alive, the next step is learning how to truly grow your portfolio. This brings us to a concept that challenges standard financial advice. Rule number 2 is radical concentration. If you walk into a standard financial advisor's office, the first thing they will preach is to never put all your eggs in one basket. They tell you to diversify by 50 or 100 different stocks, so that if one fails, you are protected. It sounds responsible. And for most people, it is. Diversification is excellent protection against ignorance. If you do not know exactly how to evaluate a business, then yes, you must diversify to protect your capital. But if you actually take the time to deeply understand a specific industry, spreading your money across 100 random companies often dilutes your best ideas. Think about it. If you truly understand 5 incredible, highly profitable businesses, why would you put your money into a 20th business that you know almost nothing about? It is like having an all-star basketball player on your team, but keeping him on the bench just to give mediocre players a chance. Wealth might be preserved in broad diversification, but significant generational wealth is often created through concentration. Now, let me put a strict guardrail here. Radical concentration is not for beginners. It is only for investors who know how to read financial statements, can emotionally tolerate major portfolio drawdowns, and have a very long time horizon. For most people, a broad market index fund should make up the vast majority of their core portfolio. You only dedicate 5 to 10% of your wealth to these high-conviction, concentrated ideas. For example, if you have a $100,000 portfolio, $90,000 stays safely diversified in broad index funds. Only $5,000 to $10,000 is used to bet on those rare, high-conviction companies you've thoroughly researched. That is responsible position sizing. To master this rule for that high-conviction portion, adopt the punch card theory. Imagine I handed you a punch card with exactly 20 slots on it. Those 20 slots represent all the individual investments you are allowed to make for your entire lifetime. How would that constraint change your behavior? You would treat your capital with extreme preciousness. You would stop gambling on mediocre, hype-driven trends. You would study the market patiently. You would only act when an opportunity is of rare, high quality. And when that opportunity appears, you size your position responsibly but with deep conviction. So, you have your punch card. You are waiting patiently for a high-quality pitch. But here is the problem. What happens while you are waiting? What happens when you are doing nothing, and your neighbor suddenly buys a brand new sports car because he got lucky on a random internet stock? Will you crack under the pressure? Rule number 3 is the inner scorecard. We live in an era where everyone is desperately playing a game on a massive outer scorecard. People buy luxury cars on high-interest leases to impress their friends. They take expensive vacations on credit cards purely for social media. Their self-worth is built on the fleeting applause of strangers. This might be the standard way of operating in the public world, but in the world of long-term investing, living on an outer scorecard is often a fast track to poor returns. To execute this approach, you must possess strong discipline and psychological independence. You must be able to stand on the opposite side of the crowd, listen to them call you boring or out of touch, and still sleep soundly at night. Imagine a financial bubble. Everyone around you is making easy money on investments that make no fundamental sense. The social pressure to join them is unbearable. If you cave to that pressure just to fit in, you often buy at the peak of the market. And when the bubble inevitably corrects, your wealth can take a massive hit. But if you have an inner scorecard, you simply look at the math, realize it makes no sense, and sit quietly. You might look out of touch for a year, but you secure your family's future for life. I often ask a direct question. Would you rather look rich or be financially free? If you choose the fake reputation over the hidden reality, you will struggle with this game. Many highly successful investors, like Warren Buffett, have lived in relatively modest houses for decades and drive ordinary cars. The masses say, "You are a billionaire. Buy a yacht." They miss the point. He already knows who he is. He doesn't need to spend capital to prove it. Your ego is the most expensive liability on your balance sheet. When you stop needing outside validation, you gain true independence. You have an impenetrable inner scorecard. But when you are finally sitting alone, what exactly are you supposed to do with your money? Rule number 4 is the art of doing nothing. In modern society, busyness is worn like a badge of honor. People love to say, "I am constantly making moves." We are conditioned to believe that constant action equals positive results. But in investing, extreme busyness is often a symptom of mental laziness. Amateur investors suffer from a behavioral tendency called action bias. If an asset goes up slightly, they feel the urge to sell and lock in a tiny profit. If the market dips, they panic. They are constantly pressing buttons, generating trading fees, and taxes that bleed their accounts dry. Here is a principle to remember. Big money is rarely made in the buying, and it is rarely made in the selling. Big money is made in the waiting. When you plant an oak tree, you do not dig up the dirt every morning to check the roots. You plant it, and you let time do the work. For most people, constant meddling interrupts compounding, especially over long horizons. The disciplined investor behaves like a crocodile resting on a riverbank. To an outsider, it looks lazy. It might sit motionless for weeks. But this is active patience. It preserves energy, studies the environment, and waits until a slow-moving opportunity steps into its zone. When the odds are heavily in its favor, its action is sudden and decisive. Your job in the financial market is filtering. Spend the vast majority of your time reading, studying businesses, and observing. Accept that on most days, the smartest financial decision is to do exactly nothing. You have learned to be patient, but human beings hate an empty void. While waiting, you will feel the urge to fill your time with endless distractions and mediocre investments. To protect your capital, you must master the 5th principle, ruthless subtraction. Modern culture screams that success is about addition, add more projects, say yes to every opportunity. But long-term wealth is often built by actively refusing almost everything. There is a popular story attributed to Warren Buffett and his personal pilot, Mike Flint. Mike asked for advice on how to succeed. He was told to write down a list of his top 25 life goals, and then circle only the top 5 most important ones. After circling his top 5, Mike supposedly said, "I get it. I will focus my main energy on these top 5 goals and slowly work on the other 20 on the weekends." The response he received was, "No, Mike, you have it completely wrong. Everything you didn't circle just became your avoid-at-all-costs list. You must not spend a single second on those 20 goals until you have mastered the top 5. Why is this so important? Because what limits your wealth are usually not terrible ideas. Terrible ideas are easy to reject. What limits your potential are the pretty good ideas. These are the average stock picks or mild trends that promise a tiny return. They act like distractions, quietly soaking up your time, cash, and focus, preventing you from achieving greatness in the few areas that actually matter. In a world of limited resources, true focus means cutting out the alternatives. If you chase 2 rabbits, you catch neither. You have subtracted the noise and are waiting patiently. But when a high-quality opportunity arrives, how do you capture it effectively? Rule number 6, reputation leverage. Many view business as a game of deception, cutting corners to make a quick profit. But for the most successful operators, reputation is one of the highest forms of economic leverage on the planet. A widely known investing adage says, "It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to completely ruin it." Think about how standard transactions work. We often need massive contracts and months of stressful negotiations to ensure no one is cheated. In finance, we call these friction costs. They bleed money and time. But at the highest levels of business, deals are frequently closed with minimal friction because absolute trust is present. When the market knows your word is unbreakable, you don't need endless legal battles. When your integrity is flawless, your business resistance drops. The best opportunities come to you because people want to work with someone reliable. Honesty is a highly profitable, long-term business strategy. When opportunities arrive, how do you know which ones make sense and which ones will simply take advantage of your lack of knowledge? This brings us to the 7th principle, understanding who the sucker is. There is a brutally honest rule in poker. If you sit down at a table for 30 minutes and you cannot figure out who the sucker is, then you are the sucker. The global financial market operates similarly. Every time you buy an asset, someone else is actively selling it to you. Do you know why? Do you know something they don't? The media pressures you to step out of your comfort zone, jumping blindly into complex new technologies or viral assets. They prey on your fear of missing out. The uncommon approach demands absolute humility. It requires you to draw a hard line around the specific things you actually understand. Your circle of competence. It does not matter how small that circle is. What matters is that you stay inside of it. Admitting I do not understand how this specific industry works is not a weakness. It is a strong margin of safety for your capital. When others make a quick return gambling on a viral trend, the disciplined investor simply smiles and says, "Good for them, but I do not understand that game, so I will pass." If you do not have a clear edge, you are often just guessing. Draw your circle. Stay safely inside it. You have drawn your circle. You are safely inside it. But knowing these principles and actually executing them are two completely different realities. Let's do a rapid recap. Remember, with any of these principles, results vary by behavior, time horizon, and risk tolerance. Practice inversion by avoiding deep, fatal mistakes. Use concentration wisely, sizing your highest convictions responsibly while maintaining a solid core. Build an inner scorecard to tune out social pressure. Master doing nothing, letting patience do the heavy lifting. Apply ruthless subtraction, cutting good ideas to protect the great ones. Treat reputation leverage as a long-term asset. Understand the game by staying strictly within your circle of competence. Most people won't execute these rules without a clear system. It requires you to be patient, ignore the crowd, and occasionally look out of touch to the untrained eye. If you are serious about applying this, I am issuing a 7-day challenge right now. Here is your action plan. Day 1. Write down your personal fatal mistakes, inversion, and commit to avoiding one immediately. Day 2. Set up your auto investments for your broad index core. Day 3. Identify and delete one purely ego-driven expense. Day 4. Implement the do-nothing rule. Commit to 0 portfolio trades for the next 30 days. Day 5. Create your 25 fifths list and officially write out your 20 avoid-at-all-costs goals. Day 6. Audit your reputation leverage. Set a strict policy for how you honor your deadlines and commitments. Day 7. Review your progress and pick one keystone rule to live by permanently. Do not just let this be another video you scroll past. Go to the comments right now and type rule number, your chosen rule, plus one action you will take in the next 24 hours. Commit to it publicly. If you are ready to build disciplined wealth, hit subscribe and join the community playing the long game. The market is open. Make your move.